Hi there, my name is Robin Long, and welcome to the DIY column of the VokTalk newsletter, where we explore how to apply good andragogical practices in our real teaching lives. So, this month, January 2022, we are going to look at how we can use the calendar app to share lesson information and organization of our day. Okay, so what am I talking about when I'm talking about the calendar? Well, we all know what a calendar is, right? The traditional paper calendar or journal type calendar. But what we're going to explore today is a digital version of it. So what you see here is this is my Google Calendar. This same information is pertinent and would work in Microsoft Teams. And later on in the video, I'll show you also what the Microsoft Teams and Microsoft calendars look like, okay? But here, so what we have is my Google Calendar, and I only have one calendar outlined, and I'll explain that in a bit. But if we look at the calendar, what you see all these entries, and I'm sorry it's grayed out. It's because the examples I have are from the last class that I taught, which since it's happened, the images are grayed out. But you can see the entries in the calendar every single day. There's an entry as to what class is going to happen at what time, and if I click on it and open it, you can see. So this is a fish and seafood class. Now we remember this class from last month's newsletter where I looked at the clickable lesson plan. Well, this is actually that lesson. That's this day here. So you can see the lesson, you can see when it is, you can see which kitchen it's in, so the room that it would be in, and then you can see here, this is the lesson plan of the day, okay? So this actually functions not just as the lesson plan, but it also functions, because it's a calendar, it functions as a student's schedule. Okay, but what the really interesting part is in here in the notes I've put in so what we're going to be doing that day, along with links out to outside documents. Okay, so we have the review, we have the learning, we have the recipes that we're going to be making, and if they click on it, it'll take them straight to the recipe page right here so they can read about the recipes that they're going to be doing, as well as answer the little questions that they're going to have to answer as part of their work. And it tells them about the materials they're going to need to bring to class and their individual learning. So this is the lesson plan, the clickable lesson plan that we saw from before. Okay, so that's all in the entry, the event entry of the day. And if you look, you can see like as you go through, there's different entries for the different days as we progress through the competency here. And as far as the Microsoft Teams looks, it's the same. Oops, close. Sorry, guys. It's the same thing. So I'm in my Microsoft Teams. I have my schedule and lesson channel, and you can see here are my schedule, my lessons based on the day. I can, as a student, I can open them up, and I would have the same information here. So I would have the time, the data, all this kind of stuff. I would have the same access to the same information with the links. The only thing is because I'm the instructor here, I can edit this entry, and a student wouldn't be able to edit this entry. That's the only difference that it would, as far as. So the real powerful part about this is the access on the phone. And so that's the part that's really cool, where the student has to download the app. You have to have the Google Calendar app, but once the app's been downloaded, then you're going to go to the month that you want, February, January, okay? And this is now super accessible, so I can look at it by month. I can have the week view, so that I can have the week view, I can have the 3-day view, I can have the schedule view if people prefer it as a vertical list. But the really powerful part about this is then I can go ahead and open up, and on my phone it's really easy to access this information. So I can go ahead and click on the recipes that I'm going to have to learn. I have access to them right here. I have the lesson of the day presentation that I can go ahead and open and access. I can click through and do the work for that. And so this is the great part about this, is that it gives the student access to the lesson plan in a really easy and compact manner that works not only in a browser, but it works especially well in their phone. All right, so let's take a look and see why using a calendar app to share a lesson is a really good andragogical practice. So we're looking at 4 really key areas, right? So the first is that it's easy access and engaging. The second is that it's organized, it's really transparent. You can really see what needs to be done today and in the future. It's got flexible delivery, so depending on how the student wants to access it, if they want to access it on like which device, it's the same information but easy access. And it goes after some of the key features of differentiated learning, such as flexible learning, student responsibilization, and student choice. So let's go ahead and look at those in a little bit more detail. Okay, so how is this, like, let's look at easy access and engaging. So by using a calendar app, and the one we're talking about here is all cloud-based. So whether it's Google or Microsoft doesn't matter. The fact that it's cloud-based means that it's the same across all devices. So it doesn't matter if it's on your desktop or your phone or your tablet. The information is going to be there, and it's going to be accessible, and it's going to appear visually in the same way, right? It's also accessible from multiple situations. So it doesn't matter if I'm in class or if it's the weekend before and I'm setting up my learning of the week. It doesn't matter if I'm taking the bus to class. As long as I have a device that can access that cloud-based software, I can have access to that information. It also has this added effect of showing that a phone, if they're using their phone, and we all know all our students have phones in their pockets. If they're using their phone, it's showing them how to use the phone in a way that's more than just entertainment. It's more than just about using my phone to chat with my buddies, play some video games, and watch some Netflix. This is a tool I can use to organize my learning, and it's eventually a tool I can use to organize my work when I enter the workforce. And the fact that it's a calendar means that it's visually comprehensible because information appears in a way that makes sense to me as far as chronology, right? Like Monday to Friday appears from left to right. And as I open up Monday, visually I can see then the list of things I need to do. But because it's an app, you can also set it up so that if I prefer to have more of an agenda view, which is more of a list of things, I can easily do that by just clicking on the agenda version of the app. So it's engaging me to learn, it's engaging me to access the information in a way I feel comfortable with. Okay? Now, being organized and transparent, it's focusing on the learning of the day, but in the bigger context of the learning management tool. So whatever you're using, Teams or Classroom, or even if you just have a Word document, like a Google Drive folder that you're sharing with your students with all the stuff in it, whatever system you're using, by creating a calendar and focusing on the day, it stays organized and it stays transparent. The student can see exactly what's going to be needed for that day. The other thing too is if I'm entering it into the calendar and I'm entering all my classes, then the entire competency is visible and organized in a way that makes sense to me. Because now I've taken that syllabus, and so it doesn't matter how you write your syllabus, if it's just a Word document or like I use a Google slide, it really doesn't matter. You can put it in a website too. By then taking that information and then putting it into a calendar, it makes it organized in a way that makes sense to me as far as the learning, because a syllabus can get to be very heavy as a document and very big, and sure, some of my students are going to consult it, but many of them just want to know, okay, I've got class tomorrow, what exactly do I have to learn, what am I going to have to do, okay? So it organizes it in a way that by combining the two things is very, very transparent. Because of this, it encourages student responsibilization. So the information is there, it's accessible through different mediums, and it's accessible in an environment that you as a student want to access it. So that is also part of differentiated learning, by showing the student that you have now given them different ways and different times and different environments to access this information, but they're the ones that's going to have to do the learning. They're the ones that are going to have to access it and interact with it. And all this, because it's in the app, means it's flexible delivery. It doesn't matter if it's, like I said before about the easy access, doesn't matter if it's on a device or on a laptop. It doesn't matter if it's before, during class, ahead of the competency even starting. And in a certain sense, because you have everything all set up and using with your syllabus and then pasting it in, you can easily just copy the information off off the calendar, paste it into a document, and print it out, so that they can even have a printed copy if you have students that want to be able to write on the document during the actual class. And then as far as the differentiated learning is concerned, we're looking at some of the key principles. Is that we have those flexible learning situations with interactive, different mediums, and the student it engages the students to interact with them, although it also advocates choice. Like, you're not forcing them to interact in one way. They have multiple ways of interacting with the information. But it stays organized and it stays focused on the heart of the competency, which is another principle. This idea of quality curriculum is that as a teacher setting those up, I look at that, and when I see that I've forgotten to put in a review of the day, or I seem to have a lot of stuff in the learning of the day, then it's a little bit of a self-reflection on my part to be like, ooh, okay, well, maybe this might be too heavy, so I can move some of this around, and it helps me ensure that I'm not losing sight of what the goal is of the day. And then, of course, it goes after that shared responsibility. So me as a teacher, I'm there to guide you in your learning because I know what the goal is, but the learning is on you. So I am giving you different ways of accessing the information for the learning and to be prepared for the learning, but you're the one who has to do it. So it's that idea of shared responsibility as well. So now that we've seen those, let's go ahead and take a look at how we can make one of these. So before I get into that, what I wanted to show you was sort of the evolution of this idea. And the evolution of this idea started a number of years ago. A colleague of mine showed me how he was sharing sort of the learning of the week with the students, and he was creating sort of just a plain document, a Google Doc or Word doc, and then he was putting in just a chart, and in that chart he was labeling it Monday to Friday, and the teachers were putting their content in, and they were sharing that document. And I thought, wow, that was really good. So I started doing it, but instead of doing a vertical thing like we usually do with like a bulleted list, I did it like a calendar. So I did it horizontally. And I used to share like these once a week. And of course, what would happen is I would forget to share it. So then I started doing a dynamic one where I would keep same principle, but every week I would update the same document. And then this document I just housed in the learning management system, which for us is Google Classroom, because we were Google for Education. And then from there, I got the idea that, well, wait a minute, Google Classroom has an integrated calendar associated with it. So instead of me creating my own calendar, could I use the one that existed? And that's where now we're going to talk about the final version. So, okay, so let's look at the steps that we're going to take to learn how to do this. So the first step is we're going to look at our macro planning. Okay, so we're going to set it up so that in step 2, that would be to be able to enter all the information that we need for the lessons of the day. Step 3 is then going to make sure we can format it in a way that's going to be easy for us to copy paste into a calendar, because we don't want to create extra work for ourselves. So we want to set up our syllabus so that it's easy to get the information from one to the other. Step 4 then is going to be to set up the actual calendar. Then we're going to, in step 5, copy paste the information to each day. And then step 6 would be to ensure that the calendar is shared with your students in a way that they can access very easily, and also to ensure that they have the necessary tools and that they know how to access it. So either through downloading the apps necessary or showing them the path through the learning management system. So we're going to do this in 6 steps. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that I do when I'm preparing my classes, so it kind of goes hand in hand with last week's activity where we created the clickable lesson plan, but I always start with the macro planning. Okay, so and I showed you guys this week. My macro planning is not all that interesting. It's really just for me. So it's a plain old Word document that just has minimal formatting in it, and I put the information that I need in there as far as the actual competency is concerned, and then I break down my daily planning where I go with my objectives. I have the administrative info, I have the recipes that we're going to do, the pedagogical activities, and what I want the student to do. I always have a review and a type of evaluation or self-assessment thing that I'm going to do. Anyway, I put all these in. I set up my competency. I put in the links. I then go ahead and develop whatever activities I want to do, just like I did for the clickable lesson plan. Oops, that's not the clickable lesson. Just like I did for the clickable lesson plan. So once this is done, then I'm going to go ahead and set up my syllabus. So once I did my micro planning, I would set up my syllabus so that once all the information was in the lessons of each day, I could just copy paste the information into the Google Calendar associated with the classroom. So what I would do here then is I would go down to my individual lessons of the day, and you can see my syllabus. So I use a Google Slide to share a syllabus, but you could easily use a Word document or whatever, even a PowerPoint. But the key is that you want to set up the document so that you can copy paste the information into the calendar. So you have to do minimal manipulation in the calendar, because that's what's going to make the calendar entry really fast, and it's also what's going to make it continuous between the mediums. So if the student decides to access it through the calendar or through the classroom or through this document, it all looks the same, and so the information is familiar. The formatting of the information is familiar. So these I set up exactly the way I want to copy paste them into the calendar. So you can see I do all the classes here. I set them up. I put in the links that I want, and everything's ready to go. So once I have all these, so once my macro planning is done, and then I set up the syllabus, then I'm ready to enter that information into the calendar. And so what I'm going to do to enter it into the calendar is all I would, depending on if this is, I'm setting up the calendar for the first time, or if I'm just accessing a calendar that already existed. If I'm setting it up for the first time, you're going to click anywhere to create an event. I am then going to go ahead and, because it's half calendar, half lesson plan, where I'm also using it as a schedule for the students. So I'm going to set up the information that the entry so that it looks like a schedule. We're going to put the time frame in. So in this case, it's, let's say, from 9 to 3. We'll put the time frame in. At this point, I put in a location, but because it's not a geographical location, I just put the room, and the room is CM Kitchen or whatever room they're in. I make sure that it's associated with the proper calendar that I want. So in this case, like I said, I'm going to have it associated with the Google Classroom calendar, so that it's not my personal calendar that's being shared, it's the one associated with the classroom, so I choose that classroom calendar, okay? I could also have the option of creating a calendar in the calendar app and bypassing the learning management system, but the handy dandy thing about doing this and making it associated with that classroom is that it's immediately accessible to anybody who's in that classroom, student or teacher, okay? And then it's down here that I'm gonna add the information. So I go back to my syllabus, I copy this information because it's all set up and ready to go. Then I go ahead and go into the calendar, and in the description, I just paste it and it's ready to go. So that's the simplest way. So now I have my entry, and it's all here, okay? There's a little bit of wonkiness with the formatting, but you get the idea. All right, so now, and this is the slick part with Google, is all I have to do is now duplicate this entry, and I can go in and I can change. So first of all, instead of it being we were in January here. So, oh no, we were in December, that's right. So I can just put it, okay, it's going to be the next day. The information's going to be the same. All this is the same unless I change the kitchen. And then all I have to do is take this, delete this entry. Now I go back to my syllabus and I go get the next class, and I copy paste that into the calendar. Okay, and save. And so now you can see I have the 2 entries. So the other thing you can do, so I can keep doing that just for the days that have the meeting, the lesson, Or the other possibility is you can also just set up the calendar for the entire competency or the entire month or the entire program, and then the teacher has to go in and change that information individually. The things I can do with the calendar now that the entries are all in is so like I said, in the calendar, it's accessible up here by clicking on the Google Calendar. But that'll give me access to my personal Google Calendar, which will have everything in there. All my calendars will pop up. Okay? And one of the tricks that we can do with Google Calendar is we can go ahead and share the calendar under settings and sharing, and we can go ahead and get a public URL to the calendar right here. And if we copy that public URL, create a posting for it, and just say class lessons, oops, it would help if I could spell that, huh? Class lessons, add the link. What this is going to do is then just create a post where they can access the calendar, but like as a web link. So under here, they can go ahead and click, and what you see is just a web link of the calendar. So everything else is gone. Now, of course, this is because I'm doing this in January. It's not, let's go back to the month where we had it. So it would look like this. And so once again, they can click on the entry. Oops, they can click on the entry. They can see exactly what's going on. Same deal. Okay. Okay, so if I wanted to do this in Teams, it works a little bit differently than Google Classroom and Google Calendar, but you can definitely still do it. So I won't have permissions to do exactly what most of you will be able to do because my school board, the teachers don't have access to Microsoft Teams, and so there's a lot of restrictions on here. But I can show you what to do. So what you want to do here, if you want to do it in Microsoft, is in your Teams, you're going to want to create. You have two options. You can either create your own channel and add to that channel through an app. You can go ahead and add the channel calendar app. You rename it whatever you want. And because I already had it added, I'll just go to schedule and lesson calendar. Oops, oh no, this is the wrong one. Sorry guys, that's the second part. Okay, no. We're going to go to this. Oh, sorry. Okay guys, here we go. We're going to go to this first one here. I guess I should have named it differently, right? And here we can add the same thing as before. So just like we did before, we would want to set up all of our stuff ahead of time so that all we have to do is put in the information, copy paste into the description, and then save it, and it'll populate the calendar just like this. The only disadvantage to this is that this is stuck inside Teams, and you can't see it in the Teams app on your phone. So that's a disadvantage to that. But depending on how you teach, if you're just teaching and you tend to use the desktop way more, this might be a really good solution. Normally, you'll be able to take these entries and add them to your own personal calendar, but I don't have the ability to do that, and I think it has to do with some of the restrictions of my school board, but I'm not sure. But in the videos that I saw, up here they had you had the option of adding to your calendar. But it could also be because I'm the one who created this. When you do that, then it will appear in the calendar, in the general calendar of Teams, which you do have access to on the app part. The other thing you can do is, so the first possibility is to add from here the app using channel calendar. So the other way to do this is instead of adding the app from the general here where you add the channel calendar, what we're going to do is we are going to, under our file, under our channel, we are going to look at our class materials. And in class materials, you're going to open up SharePoint. Okay, so we're going to open up class materials in SharePoint. When I'm in SharePoint, I'm going to go down to Site Contents. And in Site Contents here, you can see these are all the documents that are in here. At the top, I'm going to go to New, I'm going to go to app. And in here, I'm going to choose. Now, there's a bunch of new apps you can choose, but we're going to go for the classic. We are going to go ahead and take our calendar app. Excuse me. You rename your calendar to whatever you want. I already have it in here, so you could call it lessons. You create the calendar. Oops. So you create the calendar, and then the calendar appears in the Teams app under here. Oops. See, I should have renamed them because now I can't figure out which one's which. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's go to the other one. Okay. Now the calendar appears here in your Teams app. But if we go back to the SharePoint, let's go back to the SharePoint here. So it's also going to appear right here. And what you want to do here is, so you can see this is the calendar right here. You want to make sure the permissions are set so that the students can access the information, but that they can't edit the event. So under the ellipses, go to Settings. In the settings, look for permissions, so permissions for this list. And here we're looking at the members and the owners and the visitors. These are people outside of your organization. But the owner would be you and other teachers in the classroom. The members are the students. And you want to make sure that those members right here have read permission level, not edit permission level. And if they do have this, then you're going to have to go ahead and edit user permissions. When you're going to go in, you're going to say, yes, I don't want them to be able to edit. I want them to be able to read. Okay. And it will then update. So this is read only. Okay. So we're going to want to make sure to do that so that the students can't edit your calendar posts. Once it's in there, it's going to look like this. So you can see I had already entered in the materials there. But so all you do to create a post, click anywhere on the calendar, click the add button. It opens up a posting. So same deal as the other ones. Title it. So if it's a schedule title, that's fine. Give the location, the start time, the end time, and then paste in your description right here. And then it'll populate the calendar. So you can see right here, by opening up, I get the same sort of look as the other ones. And the advantage to this one is it is also very visible on the phone. So by downloading, you can see it in the Teams app in the phone. And it's easy access and easy to use. So you can see here, you open up the channel with the lesson. It opens up the calendar view, which is kind of not so great. You could be better to turn your phone, but you can at least zoom in, and then you go ahead and open up the individual entries. And in the entries, it's the format that we recognize as before. So this is the cool part where it's really the same on both devices. So thanks for watching the video on how to use the calendar app to share your lesson plans with your students. And next month, we're going to be focusing a little bit on UDL, and we're going to talk about how to create an activity where the students are going to create their own resource tool for looking up information about a specific subject in their trade. See you next time.